Vedananupasana. Vedana. Observe the feelings. Observe the feelings. What are the kinds of feelings that you experience? How many kinds of feelings? Pain. Pain is unpleasant. You can classify these feelings into three. Pleasant, unpleasant, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. There is no neutral feeling, but neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So, these are the three kinds of feelings. Now, how do you feel now? Pleasant? When there is fan and it is nice and cool, pleasant. When we turn off the fan and becomes warm and you start to sweat, then you become unpleasant feelings. But if you are mindful on your bodily elements, then you just be mindful of water coming out from the body and you don't associate it with all the discomfort. You don't cling to that. Then there is no unpleasantness. You just observe the feeling. Now this feeling that arises, it is just a mental phenomena. Mental phenomena. Because feeling is not made up of elements, not made up of material elements. It is part of what we call the mind, mental energy. Right. The next one is mind, chitta, to be mindful on the state of your mind. What are the states of your mind? There are different states of mind, conditioned by what? When there is anger in the mind, then angry state of mind, right? When there is greed, lust, desire in the mind, then the state of mind, lustful state of mind. When there is ignorance, there is deluded state of mind. So we should become aware of these different states of mind. When the mind is concentrated, we know it is concentrated. When the mind is not concentrated, we also are aware that the mind is not concentrated. So when we turn our attention to observe these mental states, the state of mind, how we can see how the state of mind changes. Little while the mind can concentrate, little while no concentration, so many thoughts arise. Little while happy mind, happy state. Then anger arises in the mind. Then you become angry. Then little while somebody, bring something, or then you become happy, laugh. These are the different states of mind. To watch and see how it changes. Then you can understand the true nature of your mind. Then the mental objects, the Dhamma. This Dhamma, there are various things that are categorized under this category called Dhamma or Dhammanupasana. When you want to develop your mind, when you want to cultivate the mind, very important to become aware, to develop your mindfulness, especially with regards to the Dhamma, with regards to what we call the hindrances. What are the hindrances in the mind? How many hindrances? 5 mental hindrances. What are the 5 mental hindrances? What are the 5 mental hindrances? Kamachanda, Vyapada, Tina Midda, Udacca Kukkucha, and Vichikicha. These are the 5 mental hindrances. You want them on the board? Various categories, but one of the categories what you call the 5 mental hindrances. First is kama chanda, sensual desires. Second, vyapada, aversion, anger, aversion, vyapada. Third, tina midda, sloth and torpor of the mind. Fourth, udacca kukkucca, udacca kukkucca. The very word itself, will make you restless. So that is what you call restlessness, the restlessness of the mind. And vichikicha is what we call doubts. I will explain these 5 mental hindrances in the next session, and it is by overcoming, by controlling these mental hindrances. When these 5 mental hindrances are under control, then there will arise 5 other mental factors. And that is how we will be able to develop the right concentration. The right concentration arises according to the different levels of absorption. The jhana factors arises when these 5 mental hindrances are at least temporarily under control, overcome. So that is why the real concentration arises when these mental hindrances are checked. And so in order to have right concentration, develop this, we must become aware of our state of mind and become aware of this Dhamma. Whenever there are these hindrances, we should become aware that the hindrance is there. When it is not there, you should also become aware that it is not there. Is the first one there now? Is the second one there? Watch and see your mental. They see the Dhamma. This is what you call contemplation on Dhamma. The Dhamma with regards to the Nivarana or hindrances. Okay? Now, we have just a few minutes, 5 minutes for questions if you have any questions. Still, we have not talked everything about Bhavana yet, just the 2, right effort and right mindfulness. We will deal again with these 4 foundations of mindfulness in greater detail later on. But for the time being, we will stop here and we will continue with right concentration. And then we understand the different kinds of meditation, the different kinds of objects to develop calmness and insight. And we can categorize this meditation into samatha and vipassana and samatha vipassana, 2 kinds of meditation. We will talk about that in the next session. Yes, any questions? If there is no question, then don't worry yourself, and we will continue. You have other occasions to clarify them, and we will stop here for the time being. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And now, what is right effort? about mindfulness on Dhamma. There are various Dhammas, and in the sense that there are different classification of Dhammas. And the first one that we mentioned was with regards to the 5 mental hindrances, right? And can you recall these 5 mental hindrances? 5 mental hindrances. Now, quick. 5 mental hindrances. In Pali, the term is called Pancha Nivarana. Pancha Nivarana. Pancha Nivarana. Nivarana means hindrances. So, the first hindrance is Kama Chanda. It is form of 2 words, Kama and Chanda. Kama Chanda refer to sensual desires, lust, sensual desires, Kama Chanda. This is the first hindrance, mental hindrance. The second one is Vyapada, or aversion, anger, aversion, Vyapada. Thirdly, Thina Mitta. Thina Mitta means sloth and torpor of the mind. Then Udacha Kukucha. Udacha Kukucha, restlessness, or worries, remorse, because this restlessness can be conditioned by various kinds of worries and remorse in the mind. And fifthly, Vichikicha. What is Vichikicha? Doubts. When you have certain doubts, sometimes in your meditation too, while you are trying to develop your mind, and at certain stage of your practice, certain doubts arise. You cannot understand certain things, and certain method, or you have doubts about the nature of yourself, when what you were in the past, what you will be in the future, or whether you are existing or not. These are doubts that arises in the mind, and these doubts are hindrances. So we must be able to overcome these doubts in the mind. Otherwise, the mind can become confused. Confusion can arise in the mind. So all these 5 mental hindrances, they in fact arise from 3 main roots. What are the 3 main roots? Greed, hatred, delusion. Right? Now let us see. The first one, which one would you classify under? Greed. Greed, conditioned sensual desires. Second one, hatred. Hatred, right? Good. Third one, sloth and torpor, conditioned by what? Sloth and torpor? Conditioned by? Greed? What do you think? Ignorance, delusion, confused. When the mind is confused, when there is ignorance in the mind, sloth and torpor, there's a lot of sloth and torpor there. Then, the next one, Udacha Kukucha, restlessness. A lot of thoughts arises in the mind. Why? What is the cause? Due to? Due to? Why is it there so many thoughts arising in the mind? Actually, all three also are involved in this, but directly involved, you see, when there are a lot of desires, when you have a lot of desires in the mind, or when you are angry, then all kinds of thoughts arises also. Greed, hatred is conditioned by ignorance. So you see, they are related. Ignorance eventually is the main cause, the main culprit. And then vicikicca, directly, what is it? Ignorance. Where there is ignorance, there is doubt. Now, how do we overcome these 5 mental hindrances? How do we overcome these 5 mental hindrances? By developing our mental faculties, by developing the power of our mind, mental faculties, in order to overcome these hindrances. And what are the mental faculties? There are also 5 mental faculties. The 5 mental faculties. Only 4. In Pali, we call it Pancha Indriya. Pancha is 5. Indriya, faculty. What is the meaning of faculty? When you say faculty, what is the meaning? First, you can copy first. Please try to remember these Pali words are quite useful to remember, because in the future, when you want to go out to other place, and maybe you may go to Burma, Sri Lanka, Thailand, or other places, and you listen to the instructions, meditation instructions in other languages, and you may not understand all the other languages, but if you can understand, you can recognize these Pali terms, because especially with regards to Sri Lanka, Burmese and Thai teachers, they are bound to use some of these Pali terms. And I have had this experience when I was in Thailand for 3 months. My first experience 3 years ago, 3 months I did not understand a word of Thai. But I was seated there every day, sit about 4 to 5, 6 hours just listening to talk in Thai, But I could not understand the Thai. But when the teacher looked at me, he sees that, cannot understand. So he used just a few words of Pali words. And immediately he used the words, I know what he's talking about. I know that he is explaining all those things. That is enough for me. And if you want to practice, just a few words is sufficient. And so that is why, try, if you can't, and maybe no need to try to memorize it by heart immediately, but keep on referring to it again and again. Then you will get used to these words. And we call these 5 mental faculties. Faculties in the sense that there is the potentiality, the potentials by which we are able to develop the potentials of our mind. And when we develop these potentials, these faculties, this is how we will be able to develop our mental powers and strengthen our mind. And it is important to have these 5 mental faculties in balance. If these mental faculties are not balanced, then our mind is also not balanced. No? So what are these 5? First one is Saddha. Saddha. Huh? Can you say? D-H-A. Dha. Saddha. Very good. Saddha means faith, confidence. Confidence, faith and confidence in what? Of course, from the Buddhist point of view, when you hear Buddhist monks, they will naturally say faith and confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. But when you develop faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, what happens in the mind? What really happens is you begin to have faith in certain moral, spiritual, as well as intellectual values. This is one. When you have faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, naturally you will have faith in moral, spiritual, as well as intellectual values. And this faith is a very important element in the mind. Sometimes in Buddhism, we hear some people talk about that Buddhism is a rational religion, and there is no blind faith. It is true. The extreme of faith, on the one extreme is blind faith. On the other extreme is skepticism. Skeptical, when you have no faith at all. So it is important to have the middle path in Buddhism is the path of having faith with reason, something that you can verify, you can reason out, and that is called rational faith or confidence, saddha we use. Just as the confidence you have with the doctor that when you are sick, you go to see the doctor. You have confidence in the doctor. If you don't have confidence in the doctor, then whatever medicine he prescribes, you may not want to eat it also. So, now what happens when there is this element of faith or confidence in the mind? When faith or confidence arises in the mind, then other mental factors also arise. The other mental factors which is directly conditioned by saddha is the second one, called virya or mental energy, effort or mental energy. When you have faith, confidence, you will have energy. You have energy. If there is no faith in the mind, if there is no confidence in the mind, then what happens is worries, anxiety arises in the mind. Suspicion, worries, anxieties, fear arises in the mind because of the lack of confidence. Now, there is the confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. There is also the confidence, the faith that you have with one another. In the home, in the family life, if the husband and wife, if they live faithfully with one another, then they don't mind working for one another. They have overtime also. They don't claim overtime. The wife works and come back and cook and clean up, and she's still energetic, no complaint. But the moment she begins to suspect that the husband is not being faithful towards her, she loses faith. When that faith element disappears from her mind, then what happens? She begins to have suspicion, fear, anxiety, worries in her mind, and then no energy. Even if she does a little bit of work, she begins to complain and says, she's tired and so much work like that. That is the nature of the mind which has no faith or confidence, the element of saddha. How do you develop saddha? How do you develop your saddha? How do you develop faith and confidence? Yes, you can. By recalling, by properly contemplating on the virtues of the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, you can establish confidence in yourself. Because, I have mentioned this before, when you think of the Buddha, you think as one who has Arahang Samma Sambuddho, one who has overcome greed, hatred, delusion. He is a worthy one. He is an Arahant. Not only is he an Arahant, he is Samma Sambuddha. He is fully enlightened. He has become fully enlightened through his own efforts. So, when you think like this, just take one or two virtues and keep on repeating in your mind, and then contemplate about it. When you keep this in your mind, then the thoughts, the idea will arise that, he is able to free his mind from all suffering. He is able to free himself from greed, hatred, delusion. Then you think of the Dhamma. You think of the virtues of the Dhamma, the qualities of the Dhamma. How the Dhamma well expounded, and this Dhamma was able to lead to the path where beings who followed this Dhamma are able to free themselves from all sufferings. And you think the Sangha, the noble ones, who following the teachings, practicing the Dhamma, they have freed themselves and entered the various stages, various paths and fruition, realize the path and fruition. So when you think in this manner, then you think what they have done, I too can do, right? Then the confidence arises in your mind. So with that confidence, energy, there is the mental energy, then you begin your practice. When there is this mental energy, then you can direct this energy into what are the causes that you direct to? The four right efforts. The four right efforts. That is not energy and effort. It is used synonymously in the Buddhist context, in the context of virya. Then you also use the effort. You need the effort to turn your attention. That means to pay attention to whatever object that you have in your mind, whatever object of meditation. That is what you call mindfulness, attentiveness. You are attentive. You are observing the object of meditation again and again, again and again. That is mindfulness. So you see how these mental faculties condition one another. And with that mindfulness, where there is mindfulness, mindfulness in turn conditions concentration. And when you have concentration, then you will be able to analyze, you will be able to contemplate and reflect, and then realize the true nature of things, see the realities, and arrive at what we call wisdom, panya. Now when these mental faculties are present in the mind is balanced. If you have too much of saddha, too much of faith, without the element of wisdom, then what do we call that? Blind faith. If you have too much of wisdom without faith, without confidence, what do you get? Just intellectual, and those who know, those who have a lot of information, very clever people, but they have no real confidence in themselves, so they do not get into the practice. No? But they are very clever, have a lot of information and data in their minds. No? And so all these must be balanced. It is just like your motor car. You have how many gears? Refer to the 5 gears. When you have the 5 gears, then your motor car can go, can cruise, can go here and there smoothly. But sometimes one of the gear jam, cannot go in. But you can still use. If the first gear cannot go in, you go into the second gear, right? And still the car can move, but the car moves with some jerk, not so smoothly. So in the same way, our minds too. When we have these faculties develop, these 5 faculties develop, then our mind is balanced. Then the mind, with this balanced mind, there is flexibility. There is not rigidity, not very rigid. Now, sometimes, while you are practicing your mindfulness and concentration, sometimes you can get a lot of concentration, but mindfulness, your awareness is not strong. And this is what happens to many yogis, many meditators. When I say yogi, it does not mean only Hindu yogis. The Buddhists also use the term yogi. No? Those who meditate, the meditators are called yogis. And when they develop their concentration, and when their minds are concentrated, they get into deep concentration. But if there is no mindfulness, there is no awareness, then what happens? They can lose the feelings, no feelings. And then they can sit long time, like stone, become like stone. But they are not aware. There is no awareness of what is happening within them. They can just cut off. Now, that is one method of concentration. There are certain objects of meditation that when you take and you can get into this line and you can just shut off yourself, and there is no awareness. This is when the mind clings to the calmness, the quietness. When you do that, that kind of concentration is called miccha samadhi, not right concentration. That kind of concentration is called wrong concentration. Understand? But on the right concentration means concentration with awareness. With awareness. Awareness of what? Awareness of inside and outside. Awareness what is happening inside you. Within this body, within this mind and body. So you have constant awareness of the mental and physical processes, whatever is happening inside you. And also you are aware of outside, what is happening outside. So when you have this awareness of inside and outside, and there is concentration too, then we say that that concentration is the right concentration. So these 5 mental faculties, when they are developed in the right proportion, then your mind is balanced, flexible. You can use it. You can turn your attention in different ways, very flexible. Otherwise, it's very rigid, very stiff. And now we use these mental faculties. With these mental faculties, when you develop, it becomes mental powers. And you can use this mental power to overcome. Overcome what? The first things which you should try to overcome is what you call the hindrances that arise in your minds. Now, actually, in theory you can say saddha overcomes this, virya overcomes that. That is in theory. But in actual practice, when you develop one factor, then that factor will condition the other factors to arise. And when all these factors arises, then all the mental hindrances becomes weakened. Understand? But just for your understanding, just to see how these mental faculties can act on the mental hindrances, can check the mental hindrances. The first one you see saddha. When there is saddha, faith, confidence. When you have faith, confidence in somebody, then there will not be so much of worries, aversion in your mind. So it helps you to overcome your aversion, anger. When you have virya, effort, that is how you can overcome sloth and torpor. You need mental energy to overcome sloth and torpor. But if you practice, if you try too hard, if you try very hard in your practice, sometimes in the beginning, you keep on trying and striving very hard. That means you put in a lot of effort. When you put in a lot of effort, then the mind can be restless too, no? Because there's too much of effort, and that is sometimes you feel a lot of energy coming out. You put a lot of effort in there, so there must be balance. Mindfulness, effort, mindfulness, concentration must try to balance it up, and effort is needed where there is sloth and torpor, to overcome sloth and torpor. And when the mind is restless, when there are many thoughts in the mind, the only way to calm down, to make the mind one-pointed, is through samadhi, concentration, is to fix the mind one place. Then these thoughts, the mind will not go here and there. And then doubts, vichikicca, you can overcome your doubts with panya, with wisdom. Right? So we see how these 5 mental hindrances can be overcome, can be checked. We can check, we can control these 5 mental hindrances by developing our mental faculties. And to develop saddha, we need to have good friends, kalyana mitta. Kalyana mitta. When you see people who have faith, who have confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, you associate with them, naturally you become influenced, and this is how your faith grows. And when you come to associate with some monks, some teachers who have good experience and who can give you the kind of inspiration, the inspiration is needed to motivate to, when you are inspired, then energy arises. You have the energy, the virya, then you can practice, and it will set you to practice well. At least you have the more exertion. Right. So now these 5 faculties develop to control, to overcome 5 mental hindrances. When the 5 mental hindrances are under control, at least temporarily checked, under control, or overcome, so the mental hindrances do not arise in the mind, then what happens? 5 other mental factors arises. Can you see this? Can you understand? Stage by stage. Firstly, try to understand the 5 mental hindrances. When you want to develop, when you want to culture your mind, then you try to, you take one object of meditation, you develop your mindfulness, concentration on this, right? And then where there is mindfulness, concentration, you have energy, you have the confidence, then you'll be able to overcome, you'll be able to control these mental hindrances. When the mental hindrances are under control, then certain mental factors in the mind will arise. These mental factors are called the jhana factors. Factors that arise when mental hindrances are checked. These are vitakka. Vitakka means applied thought. Second one is vichara. Vichara refers to sustained thought. Sometimes we use the word discerning mind, sustained thought. Then the third one is piti. Piti is very often it's being translated as joy, but better we can use the word rapture. Then sukha, happiness. And then ekaggata, one-pointedness. These are the 5 mental factors. When these 5 mental factors arise, then the mind gets into a certain deep state of concentration, gets into what you call jhana. And that is, we call this the state of mind. The first jhana, or the first stage of mental absorption, when these 5 factors are present in the mind. Vitakka. What is vitakka, vichara? Now, vitakka is what we call applied thought. Now, in our practice of anapanasati, we apply our thought. We take our mind, we focus our mind on one object, the breath, right? And that is what you call applying your thought. When you bring your attention to your breath and observe the breath as you breathe in and breathe out, and you focus your attention. While you are watching this breath, you have to bring your mind again and again to that breath. That is what you call applying the thought. You apply the thought. To turn your attention to the breath. Purposely you turn the attention to the breath. That is the first factor called applied thought. Then, after that, what do? You observe the breath. You observe the nature of the breath. And how do you observe the nature of the breath? You keep your attention there, and then you observe whether the breath is long, breath is short, whether it is fast, whether it is slow. This is what we call the sustained thought. You keep your thought there, you sustain it there, and you discern, you look at it carefully, you scrutinize it. That is what you call the vichara, vitakka, vichara. Then, when there is vitakka, vichara, you see, the next mental factor is piti, joy. If you are able to observe carefully and look at it and sustain your attention to the object of meditation for some time, is actually the enthusiasm. You find that, it gives rise to that kind of feeling that you want to sit on some more. You see? That is why every time when we stop the meditation session, half an hour we stop, or 45 minutes we stop. And if there is the piti, the joy, then you don't feel like wanting to give up. You want to carry on some more. But if there is no piti, there is no this joy, you are only waiting for the word only, no? Open your eyes only, waiting for that thing only, no? Then there is no piti. Then there is no piti. Where there is piti, if you can sustain your attention, then you will not want to get up. And this piti arises. You must also know what happens. Now, different people, according to the different nature, different temperament, may experience different things with regards to piti. If you do not know this, and if you start comparing with one another, then you may become confused, because you experience this and you think another person also must experience the same thing. And if he doesn't experience, then you say, oh, die you, you experience this one, something is wrong. Then fear arises. That is why it is important when you practice meditation, you should not go about and talk of your experience so readily to those people who do not know who are also beginners and who also do not understand, who have not got enough experience. Because if they do not have experience and you go and tell them, I experienced like this, then he said, what? I also have been sitting with you, I don't get that, right? I was very calm and peaceful. That is the right way. What you're doing, there's something wrong, I think. Then you get, this is how fear gets into your mind. And then you begin to think, is it right or wrong? Then you go and ask another person. And this other person said, no, when I sit, this is what I experience. I say, oh, no, you also don't experience this. Then you also. And that is how doubts arise in your mind. Your mind can become confused in that manner. So be careful. When you practice, don't go and talk. Don't go and discuss your experience with people who do not have sufficient experience. So that because there are different people, different individuals have different nature, and according to the nature there arises. There are different kinds of piti. Some of the expressions of this piti, just like some people have said, they begin to experience how tears fall off. This is one form of piti, expressions of piti. And if you do not know, then what happens? When tears come down, then you think, why tears come down? And then you are afraid. And fear arises in your mind also. Then again, doubts can arise in the mind. Fear and doubt can arise in the mind. So you must know that there are these different expressions of piti. Sometimes the body starts moving, rocking a little bit here and there. Sometimes you feel like crawling sensation. Sometimes you feel like ants crawling in your body. And when you try to shake it off, there are no ants. You open your eyes, see there are no ants. But you must be aware that this happens when the piti will arise when there is calmness, and naturally your body begins to sit upright. And there is the energy to go on. And so don't imagine, after this, you go and imagine, you say, oh, now I feel very, what you call itchy, and, and have crawling sensation also. Maybe real ants and mosquitoes are there. So there are this kind of, and sometimes the piti arises with some kind of electrical shock you get. Some pins and needles, very sharp, piercing pain here and there. So when you experience this piercing pain, and immediately you have no patience, so you stretch your leg and you start to massage, like some of you start breaking your knuckles, and then you cannot observe. You stop there already. So learn to observe this and let go, and then come back again to your object. If you want to develop the mind, to culture the mind properly, then do not cling to what you feel, what you see, what you hear. Don't cling to it, and not to have aversion towards it also. If you don't cling to it, you will have no aversion. Because you cling to it, then aversion will also arise. So, when piti arises, when this joy arises, then if you go on to concentrate, then what happens is you will find that the body becomes very relaxed and no more pain there. And then your mind also becomes very calm and very relaxed, and there is no stress in the mind. Although there may be an occasional thought here and there. There may be a few thoughts coming in, but the mind is at ease, very relaxed, very calm. Then this is how you experience sukha. There is this element of sukha. Kaya sukha and chitta sukha. There is the mind, the happiness, the body at ease, the ease that the body experiences, and also the mind, mental happiness. And don't cling to this happiness, because this happiness is also transient. It come and go. No? If you cling to this happiness, oh, now I'm happy, then what happens next moment? When you cling to it, then again the grosser elements arises, and then you experience pain arises. So observe what? Observe that happiness. Observe that phenomena, and see how that happiness also come and go. No? If you watch carefully the state of mind and the ease of you feel very calm, very peaceful, and observe it carefully. Wait for a little while, and you see how it disappears. And again you come back again. You bring back again your attention to your breath, and breathe in, breathe out, make yourself calm, and then happiness arises. Then after a little while, again it goes like that. Calm and go. In other words, you begin to see the nature of the mental phenomena called happiness, sukha. You see it rise and fall. When you see this rising and falling of this mental phenomena, then it will condition. The mind will naturally detach, give up this happiness, gross happiness, and the mind become focused on that object of meditation. It is now focused, one-pointed. Yes. Now, this is also, in theory, we put the order like this. But in practice, we actually start with developing ekaggata. We focus our mind. We focus our mind to the object of meditation and focus it at one point. And then after that, we arouse the vitakka vichara. We focus, put the mind one point, apply the thought there, and then observe what happens. Then, while you're observing this, then the piti arises. So these three things, these ekaggata, vitakka, vichara, they are called the cause. They are cause. Cause in the sense, causes in the sense that this is something which you have to put into practice. You practice, you cause it to happen. But the next one, the piti sukha, is the effect, is the result. When you practice that, then this naturally arises. Piti sukha naturally arises. So, these 5 things, when these 5 mental factors are present in the mind, we say that the mind is in the first jhana, first state of absorption. Then, when we begin to, if you want to develop further, get into the higher jhana, then you turn your attention again to your object of meditation, breath, until your concentration becomes fine. And then then you will experience and see how the breath, and see the breath as you breathe in and out. You see the breath is sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes long, sometimes short. And observe this, scrutinize this with the wisdom mind, and you see it. Observe the nature of it, and you see it is rising and falling, right? Little while fast, little while slow, little while long, little while short. You cannot maintain this breath for a long time. So in your mind, you contemplate, this is the unsatisfactoriness, this is the anicca of the breath. And you see that when you observe in this manner, the breath also have the grossness of the breath. As you breathe in and out, sometimes you find the constriction, the stress. So you see the stress, that the breath itself is a stress, is dukkha. When you start seeing this, you see, and then this breath, whose breath is this? Can you control this breath? Is there any self in this breath? There is no self. So when we contemplate anicca, dukkha, anatta and observe the breath in this manner, then what happens is we realize that this breath is subject to change. It is not satisfactory. There is no self in this breath. And when you observe, you contemplate it in this manner, then what happens? Your breath becomes finer, and you give up that breath also. You give up the breath? No breath? No. The mind then no longer clings to the object of meditation. That is how at certain point you find that you cannot feel the breath, that there is no more breath. And then if you do not know, then you get scared again. You say, what is happening now? That means the breath, the mind having seen the unsatisfactoriness, the stress, it gives up. When it gives up, then these two factors is no longer there. You don't have to purposely to look at the breath only. Now the state of mind is free from these first two factors, and then you have still you have the piti, still you have the gross kind of sensation bothering you at times, and there is more, the happiness, the ease. Your body is very relaxed, very calm. Your mind also very calm and peaceful, and your mind is one-pointed, focus. Your mind is in focus, and then these three mental factors arise. When there are these three mental factors in the mind, then we say that the mind is now in the has attained to the second state of absorption, or the second jhana, dutiya jhana. Then, if you want to go still further, because you see that even this state is not constant, it falls, and then thoughts can arise. So again you come up to this level, and then when you realize that state of mind, the second state of absorption is also not, you realize that it is not the highest level, then you will give up that idea, and then you say, I will now enter the next stage. Then in order to enter the next stage, you have to focus. Now your mind no longer focusing on the breath, but focus on piti. you focus on the expressions, whatever, how the piti arises, the phenomena of piti, and you see again how whatever sensation that arises, sometimes you feel the brightness, the lightness, and when piti arises, observe that phenomena and see how the phenomena arise and then goes away, rise and goes away, until until your mind begin to see that this piti, the piti is subject to change, is not satisfactory, and there is no self. You cannot control it, therefore there is no self. So when you begin to realize that, then the mind will give up this mental factor. When the mind gives up this mental factor, at this point, you enter the next level of absorption. Then there is only the happiness, what you call the happiness here, when your body and there is no excitement, the body and is very, very, very calm, very relaxed. There is no pain at all. And at this stage, the mind too, no thoughts come to your mind. But you can introduce thoughts if you want. So at this stage, there is just the happiness. And then again you will see that there are these two mental factors. Little while the happiness comes, and then little while a little grossness, a little painful sensation may come up also. Because it is still, this level of concentration is not permanent level. Still it is up and down. It is not satisfactory. So when you look at it, when you look carefully at this, at your state of mind, then you come to see that it is not permanent, it's rising and falling. Then you will want to give up. You will want to get into a higher state, and you tell yourself, now I shall enter the higher state, to enter to the next jhana. And when you enter that, then your mind need to focus. At that point, you need to focus on the mental factor of sukha, happiness, and look at the pleasant sensation that has arisen. Just observe that pleasant sensation and see how it arises and it goes also. So when you observe the rising and falling of this pleasant sensation, you see it in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, then this sukha will also, the mind will also give up this. And then the mind is just one pointed. This is the one mind. Your mind is just one there. And it is at this point, this is what you call the one-pointedness of mind, the fourth jhana. This is the highest of the rupa jhana. Rupa jhana. We call it rupa jhana because until all these stages still has its object on rupa, on form, on feeling, on form, no? And because still the mind has the object on the breath, little bit also, it's still there. Now from this point, you can still further develop into the higher states of jhana called the arupa jhana. Arupa jhana. And you want to know now some more? Yeah. At this stage of the arupa jhana, now your mind is one-pointed. Your mind is one. And it is concentrated. But this one-pointedness, there is still this feeling, there is this pleasant sensation. The pleasant sensation is there. And a very subtle, pleasant sensation. And now, if you sit for a little while, that also That state of mind is also not constant. If you are not careful, after a little while, then the happiness begin to arise, and then you see now it has fallen down to the next level. You see, when you see that it keeps on falling down in that manner again and again, then you come to understand yourself that this is still not the highest. I still have one more to go. Then that is the arupa jhana. Now you begin to contemplate with the oneness, that one-pointedness. You just tell yourself that it is infinite space. And you introduce the thought of infinite space, infinite space. Then the joy, the happy, the pleasant sensation, you begin to observe infinite. You have a little feeling. At that state, that first arupa jhana is actually the experience of one state, one aspect of the mental process, what you call Vedana. It experiences pure Vedana, the pure feeling, where there is no pleasant, no unpleasant, pure feeling there. And then still that state is not permanent, still, because it can still fall to the fourth jhana, third jhana, and so on. And then you want to go higher still, then you introduce another thought in the mind. You condition your mind. This time you condition your mind with the thought of infinite consciousness. You tell your mind infinite consciousness. But now then your awareness, you just become aware of infinite things. And that is the second level of arupa jhana. Arupa, second level arupa jhana, with infinite consciousness. And now even that state is not stable. Then at that state, actually infinite consciousness, your mind experiences vijnana, experiences what this vijnana dhatu is about, what it means by the consciousness process. It is the pure consciousness process that vibrates. Then, when you begin to see that this is also not stable, then you go on to the next level. And the next level, where you introduce the thought that there is nothingness. Then actually what you experience is, you are experience your sankhara, mental formation. But there is no mental object. At that state of mind, there is no mental object, so there is just the pure sankhara. And you see how this pure sankhara also rise, come and go. But your mind, at each state, further you develop, the happiness is very, very subtle. So very easy for you to want to cling to this. It is only when you begin to develop and begin to be mindful of the mental state, can watch your state of mind, then you can see that this state of mind is also not permanent. So when you begin to see that this state of mind is not permanent, then you want to develop still another level. And you get into the level called neither perception nor non-perception. Neva sanya, na sanya. And that level is your mind experiences what you call sanya, the process of perception. But there is there is no object for it to perceive. That means you just observe the perception process. So actually, in the Rupa jhana, our mind begin to experience, begin to see the nature of the body, Rupa, the Rupa, and see the anicca, dukkha, anatta, what you call the impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self of Rupa, of form. And when you develop further to the Arupa jhana, your mind actually takes as the object of meditation not form but formless object. Formless objects such as space. Space has no form. Consciousness has no form. And nothingness has no form. And also perception has no form. So at that state, the mind actually begin to see, begin to experience the mind, the mental processes. And so that is how the mind, in that state of mind, the concentration, you begin to see the nature of the mind as well as the body. Mind as well as the body. And then when you again focus your attention again in terms, to see it in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, then from that level, from that neva sanya, na sanya, then you get out, and that's how the next level is the nirodha, where cessation, you see the cessation of all, everything rise, fall, and then your mind becomes liberated. And that is how now the Buddha explains, when the Buddha explains Samma Samadhi, this is how the Buddha explained in terms of these different, what you call jhana. When we speak about Samadhi, we speak about the Rupa and the Arupa jhanas, you see. And but when we talk about jhana, there are two kinds of jhana. There is the mundane jhana and the supramundane jhana. The mundane jhana is the kind of jhana that you can, the absorption that you can get while you are reading, while you are look. There are certain objects, when you observe certain things, you hear certain sound, and you can get into deep concentration. You can be absorbed in it, and no need to eat also. Like you read a thriller, you read detective story, your mind is concentrated in these things. Then you get in, your mind is absorbed. Your mother call you also, you do not know. And or your mind is absorbed in your dream. The alarm clock goes also, you do not know. That is absorption. Your mind is absorbed. That kind of jhana is called mundane jhana. And that mundane jhana just come and go, does not stay. The other supramundane jhana is when while you attain, while you develop your concentration, the mind has awareness, and see it in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta. When you begin to see it in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, then that concentration, that kind of absorption becomes what you call supramundane, because it really transforms your whole behavior, you transform your whole way of thinking. And when you attain to this, the higher state, then you get into what you call, you change your lineage, gotra jnana. And at that state, you no longer become an ordinary person. You are now another lineage. That is what you call the lineage of the noble ones. Understand? So that is how from the we have to understand this, the jhana, the absorption in our mind, the mundane and the supramundane one. So when we look in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, then this is how we have the right concentration leading on to the liberation. So with that, we complete what you call the factor of right concentration. And these three things, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, when these three mental factors are there, when these three factors are there, path factors are there, then we say that there is mental culture. Mental culture, this is what meditation in the Buddhist term, according to what we call Buddhist meditation, refers to this. There is right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Now, with regards to the methods, the object of meditation, there are different objects of meditation. And these different objects of meditation, we can classify them. Traditionally, in the Pali canon, there are how many objects? 40 different objects of meditation. If you want, you can refer to the textbooks. What are these? All these 40 objects of meditation. But all the different forms of meditation can be classified we can classify them into two. What are the two forms of meditation? Sometimes the samatha is used as samadhi also, samadhi meditation. So these are the two forms of meditation, samatha and vipassana. Although, every time when we talk in Buddhism, when we speak about Dhamma, for the purpose of understanding, we classify them. Understand? In order to understand, in order to learn something, we classify them to make it easier to learn. But we cannot isolate, we cannot separate them totally in the entity, as into separate entity. And so we understand that there is samatha means here sight. Vipassana. Pasati is to see. Vipassana is the word we gives that idea of seeing it in a special manner, seeing it in a special way. And how do you see it? In what special way do you see it? You see it in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta. Understand? Then, so there are various objects of meditation that leads to calmness, that leads to tranquility. And then one can turn, in Buddhist meditation, one should turn that calmness into insight. Now, remember when we explained, right, concentration, the different jhana factors, in order to attain, in order to get into this, the different levels of jhana, right, the mind has to perceive, we also have to see the mental and physical phenomena in terms of anicca, dukkha and anatta. And that is how there is calmness, there is insight. This calmness and insight naturally paves the way to wisdom. So this method, this is what we call the samatha vipassana. Calmness leading on to wisdom. Wisdom actually arises through the calm mind. The calm mind. The only difference now is that in samatha we can again classify that calmness, that the state of tranquility, we classify them into three three levels or 3 degrees of calmness. One is the momentary, Kanika Samadhi. Then there is the Upachara Samadhi, what we call it, the excess concentration. And the Appana Samadhi, the full concentration. And the Kanika Samadhi is the momentary concentration. Now while you are listening to me, while you are listening and you are aware of the sound and you listen, from moment to moment you listen to this, you are aware of the hearing process, then you have the Samadhi, you have that momentary concentration. Understand? Moment to moment you have that concentration. That is called Samadhi, Kanika Samadhi. The other Samadhi, excess concentration, is when you sit for some time and your mind become calm and become still, and you can observe, you can concentrate for longer period of time, and just before it gets into what you call the jhana level, the absorption level, just at the threshold of it. But actually by that time there are also different degrees of this upachara. Sometimes the upachara samadhi is weak, sometimes it is very strong. And but when we get, that is why if you want to develop your vipassana, the development of vipassana, it is not necessary to attain to the full deep concentration before you turn to insight. While you are practicing this samadhi, even at kanika, momentary concentration, you can also turn your attention to observe the phenomena as in terms of rising and falling, in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta. And that is what has been called the pure vipassana method. But still there is the samadhi, right? And still if the person cannot see it clearly, just from moment to moment, then he gets into, you observe one object of meditation until there is some calmness. So that calmness, you get into certain calmness, into a degree of upachara samadhi. And then you turn your attention, when your mind is calm already, you turn your attention to watch mental and physical phenomena. Just like what we tell you, when you sit, when your mind is calm, then when the feeling arises, when painful sensation arises, turn your attention, observe that feeling and try to trace to the point and see the point where it begins, and then see how it comes up and how it goes by itself. So when you watch, observe this with the calm mind, and what you are doing is you are beginning to see, you're turning your mind to observe the rising and falling, the phenomena of the feeling, which is the phenomena of the mind. And that is what you call seeing it in a special way, seeing it in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta. Then you are turning it to vipassana, understand, to insight, to develop your insight. But if your mind, if the insight, if the wisdom is not strong, if your mind is not clear, then the pain, it is too painful, right? Too painful, you cannot concentrate. Then again you return your attention to your object of meditation. And if it is your breath, you observe the breath and further calm down your mind. Then when your mind is sufficiently calm, then you observe another, whatever phenomena that distracts you, you turn your attention and observe it. Then, and watch how it arises and falls. That is how you turn from the calmness to insight. It is a natural development, but you have also to see it in terms of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. And the other way is when your mind attains to the full jhana, after the first, second, third, fourth jhana, and then when the mind is one-pointed, then you focus this one-pointedness on the mental and physical, and then that is how you can attain to insight too. And those who attain to insight up by developing the full jhana, that is how they can get into what you call Nirodha Samappatti. They have the Samappatti, the fulfillment of all the development of jhana, and the final Nirodha, cessation of all suffering. And at that stage the mind is very strong, the energy is very powerful, and it purifies the whole atmosphere. The person who gets into that Nirodha Samappatti, and it is said that even his whatever he wears cannot be burned. Nobody can kill him at that time. At that time, when he gets out of it, that's a different thing, right? Even the place where he lives, that whole hut, you can try to burn it, also you cannot burn. Nothing can destroy that. With that, what you call at that state of mind, of Nirodha Samappatti, the whole place. And for that state, the yogi will be able to stay on until 7 days, and sit 7 days without moving, without no need to eat, just stay there like that. Can or not? Try. Nirodha Samappatti. And the person who has, the yogi or one who has cultivated, in other words, at this state of Nirodha Samappatti, he enjoys the Nibbanic bliss. He enjoys the Nibbanic bliss. And this is the advantage of those who have developed the full jhana. They can get into the Nirodha Samappatti as and when they want, because they can just shut off their minds, get into deep retreat, and get into the Nirodha Samappatti. In the case of those who develop the other forms of vipassana, the other forms of insight, then their minds still are not strong enough, so once their mind are free, but they cannot at will, they cannot enjoy that Nibbanic bliss for that long period of time. They also experience the momentary distinct. Their minds are free from moment to moment. It is free. Yes. So now we have complete the on Bhavana, right? It may be too deep to some of you, but I think there are at least a few of you here who can understand a little bit what it is about. And firstly, you hear these things, never mind if you cannot understand everything, put it one side, and just take what you can understand. Because today, when I came back, a lot of people ask, what are you doing? Samatha, Vipassana. And some people seem to have this fixed view that, you do Samatha, you do Vipassana. And actually, if you do the right Samatha, if you do according to the teachings of the Buddha, the right concentration, where there is the right concentration, there is both Samatha and Vipassana. See? So we should not have the idea that, Samatha lower, Vipassana higher. And some people have this kind of fixed idea also, and say, those people who develop Samatha, very dangerous. Those people who develop Vipassana, this is very not dangerous. Anything that is useful. In fact, concentration itself, where you have concentration itself, you can use the concentration or you can abuse the concentration. Understand? When the knife, in order to develop, when you purify your mind, you sharpen your mind is sharp like a knife, the sharp knife. You can use the sharp knife to what? For food, to prepare food for you, or you can use that knife to slaughter other beings. So in the same way, the mind that is sharpened, the mind that is concentrated, you can use it, or some people can abuse these things also. The only thing is this, that there are in both methods you will see there are advantages and disadvantages, and to what method one actually is the method that is suitable to one's depends on one's nature. There are some of saddha charita, they are faithful. There are some who have raga charita, who is lustful minded. There are some of dosa charita, that is very irritable and angry type. There are some who is very wisdom, panya charita, and very quick one. And some moha charita, very dull one. And the mind is very dull, cannot see clearly. So there are these different beings, and we cannot classify, we cannot put everybody into one basket according to what you have developed in the past, how you have developed in the past. But please do not look down on the moha charita. He may be dull. The dull one, when his mind is dull, he has to develop more of the more calmness,